Hello, boys and girls. My name's Andy Langdon. I'm a naturalist with the Elkhart County Park Department. Today we're going to talk about owls. They're more common than what you think. Okay, sometimes you smash your finger. What's the first bird that you think about? You think of an owl. That hurt. We even have a state named after the owls, and that would be Alabama. When you get married, you're going to be walking down the aisle. Lots of people are named Owl, and I'll tell you all about owls because owls are out of this world. That's probably more than you wanted to know. But we got about 8 different kinds of owls here in the state of Indiana. And so we're going to look at them and get you a little bit more comfortable with these kind of owls because they're amazing animals. Now, mostly when I think about owls, we think about birds that fly after night. And they don't all fly after night, boys and girls. Some of them, like the snowy owl is a good example. They actually hunt during the daytime. We usually don't get the snowy owl down here, but we'll talk about him in a little bit because we do get the snowy owl down here once in a while. He's one of the 8 owls that we have in the state of Indiana. All right, so let's look at some of the owls. Okay, boys and girls, this is our largest owl in Indiana, and it is called the great horned owl because of its little tufts up here. They're not really horns, but the tufts of feathers. We'll talk about them later. And sometimes it's called a tiger owl or a hoot owl, and it's usually the sound that you usually think about when you thinking about an owl. Hoo 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 hoo. Owls were generally thought to be very wise back in the olden days. And the reason was, boys and girls, because it was accompanied by Athena, and Athena was the goddess of wisdom back in the Greek times. And so they thought that owls must be wise because they accompanied their Greek goddess back in the Greek days. They also used to think that owls were wise because they look like they're wearing glasses, and back in the olden days, the teachers would wear glasses, and so they thought owls were wise because of that. So, boys and girls, they are not that intelligent. As a matter of fact, a crow or a raven is more intelligent than the owl. Owls are hard to train compared to some of the other birds. They don't have a very big brain. You can see it's a good-sized bird. It weighs anywhere from 2 to 5 pounds. But if you look at its skull here, you'll notice that most of him is feathers, okay? He's got a big fat face there, but if you look at him, he's mostly feathers. So that's what makes him look so big. But he is a nighttime hunter. But this is one hawk, boys and girls, that will actually kill and eat a skunk. And they've got these talons that are very, very strong. They can squeeze about 500 pounds per square inch. How much is that, Uncle Andy? Well, if you think about it, boys and girls, when you bite down on something, you're biting down about 120 pounds per square inch with your mouth. These guys are squeezing about 500 times per square inch. So they live to be about 5 to 15 years old. And in captivity, boys and girls, when people keep them because they have a broken wing or something, they might live to be up to 50 years old. So they can get quite old, boys and girls, for a bird anyway. Can an owl turn its head all the way around? Let's find out, okay? So they can turn their head all the way around, can't they? In reality, boys and girls, they can't turn their head all the way around. They can only turn it about 270 degrees, but not all the way around. They can't go that far. Now they can go about that far, and then they have to turn around and go the other way. So we can turn our heads about 90 degrees, about this far, but owls can turn theirs about 135 degrees one way and 135 degrees the other way. So all in all, they can turn their head about 3/4 of the way around. So almost all the way around. So this is our largest nocturnal predator. Nocturnal means nighttime. Sometimes we call him the tiger owl because he's a very aggressive owl. And sometimes we call him the silent hunter. And that's because he flies through the air very, very quietly. Quiet enough that even a mouse or a rabbit can't hear him. Now if you look at these little fringes right in here, that quiets the sound down. So if you took your fingers and you pushed them around your ear, you'll notice, hold your fingers open, and you'll notice, boys and girls, that you'll have a lot less air than what you do if you cup them like that and swish. And you can also feel more air this way than what you can if you open up your fingers. And the reason is because these little things here, these little tufts of feathers right here, these fringes, break up the sound. So it makes the owl fly a whole lot quieter. You also might notice its feathers down here. It covers its talons down there, and it's very, very soft back in here. It's got a lot of feathers back in there. You can see how far my finger is going back through there. So he's got a lot of feathers on him. Boys and girls, he's even got feathers on his eyelids right here. So he's, when he closes his eyes, he's very hard to see. And so this is why you usually hear them, but you hardly ever see them. Again, boys and girls, this is the great horned owl. Let's take a listen to him. A large part of their skull right here is their eyes. And their eyes are not round like ours. Their eyes are more like a tube, like toilet paper roll. They fit down in there. Let me show you the skull. This is his skull again. And you can see that his eyes, they're not round. They might be round this way, but if you look down through there, they look like a tube down through there. They're not round like ours is. And their ears are not on their sides of their head. They're on the side of the head, but they're not straight across from each other like ours are. You got one ear down here, and you have another one just slightly higher than that. And the reason for that is because they not only have to hear horizontally, but they also have to hear vertically. So when he's in a tree, he'll be able to catch something and eat it from the tree. And can owls see in total darkness? No, they have to have a little bit of moonlight or a little bit of starlight in order to see in total darkness. And that's why they got this big flat round face right here. It kind of acts like a satellite dish, so sound goes down in there, and it funnels that sound right into their ears right here. Now, these tufts, these are not their ears. Okay, these tufts, they act to break up his silhouette when he's on when he's in a tree or something like that. So it makes him harder to see. Animals think this is a branch instead of part of him because his head's not round because it's broken up by these little tufts of feathers. So he can go down on prey without the prey seeing him very well after night, or he can go down on prey without the critter hearing him after night because he is the silent hunter. Now this looks like a baby great horned owl, but it's actually a screech owl, which is a totally different species from the owl, from the great horned owl. Okay, so this is a screech owl that comes in the red phase. Also comes in the gray phase. So they're not very big, but they do look a lot like a great horned owl. They got these little tufts of feathers, just like the great horned owl has. And he's got these big old eyes like the great horned owl does. He's got these feathers all over his feet like the great horned owl does. So this is a screech owl. And screech owls are called screech owls because, well, people thought that they kind of made a screeching sound. Sometimes they whine like a horse. They have that kind of a whinny sound to them. Let's take a listen to the screech owl here for a minute. So these guys are very small compared to the great horned owl. These guys, boys and girls, only weigh about 4 to maybe 9 ounces, where the great horned owl weighed about 5 pounds. So there's a big difference in them. And owls are what's called far-sighted, so they can't see things up close very well, but they can see things far away very nicely. So they are what's called far-sighted. These guys like to fly around in the woods. The great horned owl does too, and that's where they catch most of their prey at. But they like around the water's edge where there's a lot of animals that they can eat. Things like small mice and small birds and insects. They're small enough that they do eat insects. So they have a variety in their diet, boys and girls. The barn owl, boys and girls, has a kind of a heart-shaped face, and it's kind of a brownish white color, and they call it a barn owl because it lives in barns. It's pretty good size owl, but they are endangered here in the state of Indiana, which means we don't have very many of them. Let's take a listen to the barn owl for a minute. That kind of heart-shaped face to it, so it's a really pretty bird. And it's a good-sized bird, about anywhere from 14 to 25 ounces, so it's not huge, but it's not a small bird either. So about 2 pounds is about what that bird weighs. Boys and girls, the barn owl will live about 10 years in the wild. And there's another one called, not the barn owl, but the barred owl. And he lives about 18 years. You'll notice that the barn owl had brown eyes. So does the barred owl. They both have brown eyes. Now this is one that you might see during the daytime. And you might say something like, "Who cooks for you? Who cooks for you all?" Let's take a listen to him just for a minute. This is my favorite owl of all. So boys and girls, this is one that you might spot during the daytime because they just roost anywhere. So it might be one that you'll find during the daytime. And as big as he is, he still only weighs about 1 to 2 pounds, about the same as the barn owl weighs. So they both have these beautiful brown eyes. And here in the state of Indiana, they're the only 2 owls that have brown eyes. All the others have yellow eyes. Okay, we'll show you another one with yellow eyes. The short-eared owl, boys and girls, he doesn't have really tufts of feathers. He's got little tufts of feathers, but they're hard to spot the feathers. Here, I'll show you what I mean. There he is. They got little tufts of feathers up here, boys and girls, but they're very hard to spot. You almost have to be right on them to see those little tufts of feathers. And they both, the long-eared owl and the short-eared owl, both of them live right here in Indiana. So we don't see them very often, but they like to live out in the open. They hunt out in the open, but they hide in the woods after dark. So they're a little bit harder to spot. But they're both about the size of a crow. So they're not real small, but they're not real big either. About the size of a crow. This is an owl that nests on the ground. It's got these heavy streaks in its chest, and it usually eats things like little small mammals, voles, mice, even small snakes. The same with the long-eared owl. They're a lot alike in the way they hunt. So the short-eared owl, boys and girls, is he's a diurnal hunter. That means he hunts during the daytime when most owls hunt during the nighttime. So let's take a listen to the sounds that the short-eared owl makes. This is the sounds of a short-eared owl. Okay, now boys and girls, let's take a listen to the sounds that the long-eared owl makes. And the long-eared owl, boys and girls, makes a hoot sound, hoo, hoo, kind of like a great horned owl. Only they're usually all by themselves instead of hoo, 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 hoo. They're hoo, 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 hoo. They're just singular. So let's take a listen to the long-eared owl now and see what he sounds like. Okay, the next owl is what's called a saw-whet owl, and that is our smallest owl in Indiana. He's like the short-eared owl and the long-eared owl. He likes open spaces, but he's a very tiny little owl, so he's very hard to spot. But if you're going to spot him, the winter is the best time to spot him because the leaves are off the tree, and that's when you can see him from a long distance away. So this is the saw-whet owl. So let's take a listen to the sounds that the saw-whet owl makes. He sounds kind of like a file on an old saw. He doesn't live very long, boys and girls. He only lives about 7 years. So he doesn't have a very long lifespan about him, but he's a very tiny little critter, very small little critter. Boys and girls, his diet will be small mammals, maybe a small bird, insects. He does eat insects and even small snakes and things like that. So this is what's called the saw-whet owl. Now let's look at another one. It's called the snowy owl. And boys and girls, we usually don't see the snowy owl. The snowy owl is a little bit different because he comes down from northern Canada into this area. He comes down through here about every 4 to 5 years. You'll see him down in this area because there's a little thing called the lemmings. And when the weather gets bad up north, or the lemmings, which are like little mice, they're actually like big mice, their population starts to go down. Then some of these owls come down into our area so that they can find food down here. And they're a beautiful owl, and many times you find them right on the ground. They nest on the ground. And so because there's not a lot of trees way up in like Alaska and places like that, so many times you find them right on the ground, but that's where they nest. Okay, now boys and girls, this guy's actually a little bit larger than the great horned owl, but he's not a resident of Indiana. He comes down here when the food is bad up there, or the weather might be bad, and then he'll fly back up there. So he doesn't stick around very long. And he hunts during the daytime, but he only lives about 10 years in the wild. So he doesn't live very long in the wild at all. Maybe 25, 28 years, something like that, in captivity. So they don't live a long time, boys and girls. But this is our friend, the snowy owl. So let's take a listen to what he sounds like. Quick review, boys and girls. Do you remember what these owls are called? These are screech owls. Very small. Okay? And anybody know what this one is? Got the great horned owl. The great horned owl. Okay? The barred owl. At the long-eared owl and the saw-whet owl. And finally the short-eared owl. So boys and girls, those are 8 owls. The screech owl, the saw-whet owl, the barred owl, the barn owl, the great horned owl, the snowy owl, the long-eared owl, short-eared owl. Those are our 8 owls that we have here in the state of Indiana. So I hope you've learned something, and hope to see you guys again. Again, this is Andy Langdon with the Elkhart County Parks Department, and I'll see you later.